everybody. So this is the last of my 3 Alaska videos. Last Friday you saw what I wore on the cruise. This past Sunday you saw the vlog, which as of this filming is not fully edited yet. So if you have never seen me before in your life, my name is Marnie. This is my YouTube channel, known here as MsGoldgirl, and my family and I, my husband and my 2 boys, ages 19 and 16, just came back from a week-long Alaska trip cruise. Starting in Seattle, and we went round trip, and we hit Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, and Victoria, British Columbia in Canada, and we were supposed to have also sailed through the Tracy Arm Fjords, but we had to skip that part and go straight to Juneau from Ketchikan. First of all, if I had to do this cruise all over again, I would not have picked the itinerary that we picked. Now, it's a 7-day cruise, but a lot of that is spent at sea, and it is a very small window of when you are actually in port. It's hard to get your head around how big Alaska is and the distances between the ports. So there is another itinerary that most cruise lines offer, and it's not round trip. You start usually in Vancouver and then go up the coast and end in Anchorage. So it's still 7 days, but it gives you more time to hit all those ports and a little more time in each port. The nice thing about this cruise is it still gets you to some amazingly beautiful locations, and I definitely now have a taste for Alaska, and I will be back one day. Probably either to do that 7-day one-way cruise or a land tour instead, like fly into Anchorage and then do a land tour into Denali and stuff like that. But that's a whole different video. Things that you should absolutely bring along regardless of where you are going, whether it's Alaska or the Caribbean or what have you. Something I did not take into account is the severe lack of access to Wi-Fi. Yes, I purchased, I think it was $200, gets you 6 or 7 hours, maybe it's longer, of Wi-Fi on your phone or device or whatever. And that was just for one phone. That could not be split among all 4 family members. So what I didn't think about was when we split up on the boat, how do we communicate with each other? Because specifically in Alaska, and definitely when you're sailing in other places, I thought we'd be close enough to the shoreline to pick up the land towers in Alaska so we wouldn't be roaming or at sea. But no, you are, for the most part, unless you're in port, nowhere near any kind of cell tower. So the only option is cell phone at sea or cell at sea, which is ridiculous roaming charges, and you don't want to do that. So if I had to do this all over again, we have these from other cruises, I just didn't pack them. These little walkie-talkies, this particular one is from Cobra. You can find them at like Walmart and Target and all Amazon, I'm sure. Everybody picks the same channel that you're on, you know, so you can communicate with each other, because I couldn't even text the kids and say, hey, we're going to lunch. You want to meet us in the dining room, or we're going to this, meet us here, or where are you? There are limited messaging options, but everybody has to sign in to the free Wi-Fi, and there's no notification, so you have to constantly check. It's kind of a pain. So walkie-talkies are a must-have on a cruise. The other thing that I packed that I don't have with me because I didn't bother bringing it back was a pack of Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes, anything that, you know, can sanitize and disinfect your cabin. So cruises are very well known for being big old germ factories. Knock on wood, none of us got sick, and you know, the reality is the cruise ship pulls into port, everybody's off the ship by 11 a.m. and they're starting to load passengers back on by like noon, if not earlier. So as far as how in depth they're cleaning and sanitizing your cabins, probably not so much. So as soon as we got to our room, our luggage was waiting for us, the first thing I did was grab the Clorox wipes, and I wiped down pretty much every surface in the cabin. I pulled a Lisa Rinna, if you watch The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. That included all the light switches, the sink area, the toilet area, the phone handle, the TV remotes, you know, the surfaces on all of the horizontal surfaces, all the dresser tops, the nightstands, etc., the doorknobs, the handle to the balcony door, anything that I could wipe, anything that we were going to be touching with our hands, I wiped it down, and I did it a couple of times throughout the cruise. It's just one of those things you really, in general, don't want to get sick, but you really don't want to get sick when you're stuck on a boat at sea. So that is a huge tip. Another thing I didn't really take into account is the lack of outlets or lack of outlets that are convenient to where you are. So there was, we were in basically a king size, we were in a mini suite. So we had a king size bed for Michael and me, and then the boys in the like sitting room area had a pull-out couch that turned into a double bed, and then a bed that pulled out of the ceiling that was a twin size bed. It's kind of a cool little setup there. Plenty of room for all of us, but there was only one bedside outlet on my side of the bed, and there was nothing near where the boys were sleeping. So it was helpful to have a couple of extension cords and some power strip outlets so that everybody could be plugged in and charging their, phones, iPads, what have you. I use my iPad for reading, so that we had, and I had a place to plug in my camera battery charger, all that stuff, because it's not so convenient in the actual cabin. And the outlets that are in the bathroom are only good for charging men's razors, electric razors. They don't have the wattage for hair dryers, curling irons, flat irons, etc. So it was nice for me to have that power strip right at the vanity area in the main cabin, so I could plug in all my styling tools and all that stuff while I was doing my hair, which I didn't do today, clearly. Another thing, they never give you enough hangers. In most cruises, not as much as I thought I would in Alaska, but for most cruises, you have a day outfit and you have an evening outfit that's a little dressier. So there's two sets of outfits for every day. That many of them need to be hung. They give you a very limited amount of hangers, especially when there's 4 people in a cabin. I think we got 10 hangers. So I packed hangers, and I'm really glad that I did, because we even ran out of hangers and had to request a few more. And they're limited as to what they have as far as backup. Tight spaces, they keep things kind of lean on a cruise ship. Another thing to pack and not rely on them having for you is a hairdryer. I have I didn't bring it with me to show you, but I have a travel fold-up T3 hairdryer that everybody in my party used to dry their hair. The one that's provided by the ship, this is about the strength of it. It's not great. So if you have a good one, I love the T3 one because it's really powerful for, it folds up and it's like that big. That's my favorite, and that's one I recommend. There's tons of other fold-up travel ones, but definitely bring your own hair dryer. And if you're bringing styling tools like a curling iron or a flat iron, bring something that's heat resistant to set them on and or store them in when you're done with them, so you can put them away and not set fire to the ship. They kind of frown on that kind of thing. Let's talk about purses, bags, etc. So I thought when I was packing that I would bring a smaller size tote bag, and that's what I would use traveling back and forth on the plane and maybe while we were sightseeing and or walking around the ship. I soon realized that the smaller size tote bag I brought, which was specifically the GG New York Zip Tailor, was too small for what all the stuff I was bringing on the plane. So I had stuffed that thing to bursting, and then it was too big for wandering on the ship and in port. So in hindsight, I would have packed my usual much larger travel tote so I can have everything that I wanted: magazines, iPad, Kindle, laptop, snacks, water, all that stuff. I would have that in my tote bag. And then on the ship, I had packed my Gucci, I think it's called the Soho Disco bag. This is the shape. It's this shape, but it's like a pewtery metallic color, and I had planned on using that just for my evening bag. I ended up using that as my everyday bag all day long on the ship, most of the time in port. It was a little much, I think, for just walking around the ship stuff, but I would have, if I had realized what I was doing, I would have packed this one. This is by GG New York. This is the Madison bag. It's the same exact shape. It's basically a dupe for the Gucci one, but it's like a quarter of the price. Comes in lots of different colors. I like a neutral bag like this. It would have gone with everything I wore throughout the week, day or night. It's big enough that you can get your phone, a camera, your little wallet if you need a wallet. Other things that I recommend always keeping with you on the cruise: a small hand cream, because like I said, cruises are a big germ petri dish kind of thing. And every time we went in to eat somewhere, which is frankly all you do on a cruise, you just eat. You plan your days around food. Every time you walk into the dining room or the buffet area, there's a guy wanting to make sure you've done the hand sanitizer, which is great, but my hands got so dry. So it's great to have, hand cream with you, a lip balm with you, your lipstick. Anyway, all the little things that your walkie-talkie, it all can fit in this thing. If you want something a little bigger, I think this is even bigger than I would have needed. This saddle bag I really like. I like that they're both crossbody styles, and I like that this one in particular has an outside flap so I can stick my phone in there. But for the most part, you're not using a phone when you're on the ship, so that probably wasn't necessary. I think that something this size would be perfect. In port, I have my eye on a bag from Bagolini. It's called, I wrote it down because I want to go like investigate a little more. It's the Bagolini Journey Crossbody. It's about this size. It has some more flaps and pockets, and it's more of a nylon. So I think it's a little more travel friendly for when you're in port. It rained and or was misty two out of the 4 ports. So maybe you don't want to be walking around in port with a leather bag. Something that's nylon or water resistant might be a little more effective. So that's the one that I have on my radar. Not that I'm going back to Alaska anytime soon, but I just think it's one of those things that's good to have in your closet for when something comes up. You're prepared for weather type things, and then you're not scrambling at the last minute to find a bag that fits your travel needs. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that one. I've talked about the camera. So this thing was amazing. I picked up this camera on the advice of Miss Crystal, who, if you don't watch her channel, she travels a lot. She cruises a lot, and her cruise tips are spot on. She was gracious enough to get on the phone for me for like 2 hours, and I drilled her on everything. She recommended this Canon. The one I have is a newer version. It's the SX730HS. It's a great little camera for a lot of things, and a not so great camera for indoor vlogging. It doesn't do well in normal to low light situations indoors. It gets kind of grainy, but for taking outside video, for extreme zoom, it has a 40 times zoom, which it's considered one of the power zoom cameras, and for taking really great quality HD pictures, this is a fabulous camera. It's also half the price of my normal vlogging camera, my Sony RX3 100, whatever it's called these days. I still prefer that to vlog on. It's much better for me for what I do. But for the average person who still maybe wants to do selfies, it does have the flip up screen. It films in HD. The extreme zoom was so helpful considering the tours that we took where we were very far away, like on a seaplane, in a helicopter. We were at a bear observation station, so I didn't want to get up close and personal with a bear, but I could through the power of my camera. Another thing that I highly recommend, especially for a cruise like the Alaska cruise, to get up close and personal, bring some binoculars. We have 2 sets of these. We got these years and years ago when we did a cross-country tour through South Dakota and Wyoming, and these really came in handy, especially during bear observation time. The park ranger and the tour guide had a couple of extra ones, but there were quite a few people in our party, so if we had not had these handy, we would have had to wait in line, and you don't want to do that when a bear pops up because you never know how long they're going to be hanging out, and it's not like they're posing for pictures. I want to jump back to purses and bags really quickly because this will apply even to the men who don't normally carry purses. So like I mentioned, we took 2 like bucket list excursions. We took a seaplane to a national forest or national park and observed bears, and then we took a helicopter to the top of a glacier and did a dog sled thing and then helicoptered back. Both of those had said really no bags allowed. Maybe some small bags on those FAA regulations, not the tour company regulations. It turns out small bags like this one I could have brought, but the FAA does not allow 2-strap bags like a backpack. And I had bought a very small travel backpack thinking that would have been perfect for these 2 trips. No, I had to leave my bag in a storage locker at at the first facility. So no backpacks allowed. The good news is, and my next packing tip for Alaska is a lightweight hooded raincoat. And the one I got from Columbia is amazing because it's a great layering piece. It's heavy enough for spring, summer, a lightweight layer. It's also light enough that I wore it underneath my North Face puffer coat when we went to the top of the glacier. But the best thing about something like a Columbia raincoat, or one that's geared more for outdoorsy stuff, is it had a ton of pockets. So I stuffed my camera in one, I stuffed my phone in the other, I had my ID in one of those little pockets up here. Like I was like the safari vest kind of pocket raincoat. So I just stuffed everything in my pockets, pared it all down, and then left the extraneous stuff in the storage locker at the seaplane terminal. And also the hood is important because, like I said, rains a lot in that part of Alaska in the summertime, and you really don't want to be bothered holding an umbrella, trying to take a picture, all that stuff. Plus, you're usually in groups of people, and if you're holding up an umbrella, you're blocking somebody else's view. So just be a gracious passenger and think about, you know, other people trying to see too. So the hood was great. I had a drawstring, so my hair didn't get all wet, and even like a baseball hat would have been a good idea to like put a brim over, you know, my face, but I didn't have that. The other piece of gear that is essential if it's cold or if it's wet is this guy. These are the new Sperry duck boots for the fall. They have a tiny little wedge. This is like nothing. It still feels like you're pretty much walking around in flats. The slight elevation, I've heard from many orthopedic surgeons and from podiatrists, is actually better on your back than to be wearing full-on flats. So these are super comfortable. These laces are mostly for decoration. You can tighten things up a little bit, but here's what I love the most. It's got a zipper. So easy on, easy off. They were still really tight up around this, the upper part for about 15 minutes. So my recommendation is if you do get these, go down half a size and wear some really heavy socks and just clump around the house for a good 15 minutes before you take these with you on a vacation anywhere. Once they're broken in, they feel like a pair of old gym shoes. They were super comfortable. There's traction on here. I went hiking on the side of a mountain with these for a little bit. Back to the Wi-Fi thing, which I should have mentioned. Sorry, you're jumping around a little bit. Because you have limited Wi-Fi and it's very slow Wi-Fi and it's very weak Wi-Fi, if you use an iPad or a Kindle or even your phone to read or to like play offline games, make sure you've downloaded everything you think you're gonna need and a little bit more before you leave the house, because you're really not gonna have that opportunity on the ship. And when you go into port, yes, there are places that have free Wi-Fi, but you don't wanna haul your tablet with you while you're trekking around these amazing places. You don't wanna waste time doing that. So definitely download everything that you think you might need and a little bit more before you leave home on your own Wi-Fi. Another thing I wish I had packed was a more lightweight yet formal cardigan or shawl for the evenings when I did feel like dressing up. Most of the time I didn't wear any of the dresses that I had packed because they were sleeveless or short sleeved, and it gets cold at night and you just don't want to go down to those layers. So if you want to make the most out of your evening wear, although the Alaska trip is particularly casual as compared to other cruises, go ahead and pack your regular evening wear. Just pack a shawl or a lightweight cardigan that you feel comfortable wearing over your evening outfit, because it does get a little chilly on the ship at night. One thing I did pack, which I used every day, were my Ugg slippers. I wore them in the room. I didn't leave the room with them, but I wore them every time we were in the room. That was the first thing that went on my feet. If your feet are warm, the rest of you are pretty warm. So if you can pack some cozy slippers to wear around the room, I think you'll be really happy. So like I said a few times, this cruise as compared to our Caribbean cruises was really casual. So daytime wear, jeans, leggings, joggers, you know, long sleeve shirts. Maybe I should have packed a few more medium weight to heavyweight sweaters, just real casual, comfortable stuff. As far as the evening wear went, like I said, I only wore dresses the 2 formal nights, and then one night I wore one dress because it was long sleeved. But smart casual on an Alaskan cruise ship means dark wash jeans. As long as there's no holes in them, you're good to go. I saw people wearing like t-shirts, jeans, and like non-gym shoes for dinner, and that's what they wore. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what your tips are for cruising in general, for Alaska, what have you. I'd love to hear it. Let's keep the conversation going down there. As always, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.